Hey everyone, this is Friedel Hakoreja Raven, and the incredibly well-written dark comedy show Barry is back with a season 3 after 2 years? Season 2 ended up airing back in 2019, but yeah, I'm very very glad that the show is back, and as far as I can tell, Season 4 has been written as well. Like Season 3 and Season 4 were written back to back, so Season 4 is just waiting to get the green light to begin production. That's what I know. Don't quote me. I could be wrong. Information could be wrong. But anyway, coming back to season number 3. So it opens up with Barry basically working with these weird people who want to assassinate, who want to get other people killed because they're angry at them and whatnot. And yeah, the title of this episode is called Forgiving Jeff, and we actually see Barry working with Jeff. And it turns out that, if you guys can see in the grave that he dug, that there are two men over here. So one of the men is who ended up hiring Barry to kill the other man because that other man ended up sleeping with that guy's wife. And as the person who ended up hiring Barry is trying to figure out what to do with Jeff. Jeff is the name of the guy who ended up sleeping with his wife and whatnot, but the other guy's wife. So he's like, you know what? I want to torture him. I want to take. I think from what I can remember, he's like, I want to cut his eyelids and whatnot. But basically, he wants Jeff to feel pain, and then he wants Jeff to die. And he asks Barry to bring in the clippers. And yeah, Barry is walking towards them. But before Barry can do that, the person who hired Barry, he's like, wait. You know what? Change of plans. I've decided to forgive Jeff. He's sorry that he ended up sleeping with my wife, and my wife isn't any saint either, so mistakes were made, but I am ready to forgive him. And Barry ends up shooting both men, which, considering who Barry is, it made a lot of sense, because Barry is like, you know what, there is no forgiving Jeff, and he ends up killing both of these guys, and he drives off. So basically, the premiere episode for Barry season 3 actually opens up with showing that, you know what, Barry had issues. Barry had issues back in season number 1 and season number 2, but in season number 3, he's spiraling. He is spiraling. Yeah, these are the two guys. So, and this is the guy who ended up hiring Barry. This is the guy who ended up sleeping with this guy's wife. And yeah, Barry ends up shooting both of them in the head. Story over. So we cut to Barry. He's been living with Sally, and yeah, it turns out that even him living with Sally isn't giving him the purpose that he wants. Basically, it's not even a relationship at this point, because Sally is very busy in her acting career, and for as far as she's concerned, Barry is basically a prop to her. She basically tells him how to act, what to do, where to go, and when to go. And as she's walking around the apartment ready to go to work, she tells Barry that, you know what, I want you to come over to the studio with yellow flowers, and even if I end up inviting you to stay for lunch, know that you can't stay for lunch and you need to go. And Barry is listening to all of this, and Barry is also complaining that his game controller broke. So basically, yeah, this relationship, it's not fulfilling to Barry. It's just not. So we cut to Detective Dan Ann or something, and she's here at this greenhouse, and she's like, not greenhouse, my bad, a plant nursery, and she's like, you know what, I want to talk to Noho Hank, and yeah, Hank is still working is with the Chechenians, and we cut to Hank in his office, and we get this Chechenyan guy over here, and the Chechenyan guy who was talking to the detective, he ends up running to Hank, and he's like, you know what, the police is here to question you. And Hank is kind of excited. He's looking forward to the interrogation, because Hank is like, you know what, this is the first time that I ended up that I'm being interrogated, and you know what, I'm feeling excited. And the actor who ends up playing Hank, he continues to do a very good job. And yeah, I forgot, this episode has been directed by Bill Hader, and there's this very impressive shot later on in the episode featuring Sally, which I'll get to in a bit. But yeah, Hank is very very excited. He's looking forward to an interrogation, and the guys that he's with, they're like, you know what, if we don't hear from you in 2 hours, we'll take cyanide pills. And I'm like, oh. So the interrogation scene is interesting, because yeah, this is where Hank realizes that I'm in trouble, because Barry ended up basically framing him for Janice's murder, because the detectives end up giving him this pin, and yeah, it's the same pin that Hank gave to Barry, and he ends up lying to the detectives basically. And he's like, you know what, yeah, even though Hank has this comedic side to him, basically he is still very smart. He knows how to look after himself. And this is where, when the detective tells him that, you know what, we feel that the shooting at the monastery and Detective Janice's murder, they are linked. And she ends up showing Hank some photos which incriminate him. And yeah, the photos also have Fuchs in it, and this is where Hank is like, I see an opportunity, and he ends up blaming everything on Fuchs. He lies to detectives, telling them that Fuchs is basically a Chechnyan spy, a very, very trained assassin who goes by the code name Raven, and the detectives are like, really, you want us to believe that this guy is called the Raven and he's extremely skilled and whatnot? And Hank is like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you, but it is what it is. He is the Raven, and the Raven lives in shadows. Who knows where he is at this point? And we cut to Fuchs, and he's been living in the mountain range over in Chechnya in this little cabin with another guy, and he ends up waking up, I guess, every morning to milk the goat, and he goes in, he eats cereal, he wants to watch matches, but even streaming isn't allowed. And as he's talking to one of the guys who's keeping an eye on him, this is where this woman walks in. I think her name is Anne, and she is the one who ends up bringing them cereal. And yeah, Fuchs looks at her and says something, and I'm like, am I supposed to remember this woman? Did this woman appear in the previous season? Again, it's been 3 seasons. I kind of forgot what actually happened. Maybe I'm supposed to remember her. Maybe she's a new character. I'm not really sure. So then we cut to Jean getting to talk with the detectives, and this is where the detectives are like, you know what, Jean, we ended up talking to Hank, and we believe that the person responsible for the monastery shooting and the person responsible for Genesis' murder, it's the same guy, and he goes by the code name the Raven. And they end up showing the Raven's photographs, who is basically Fuchs photographs to Jean, and Jean is like, yeah, this guy is linked to Barry. The detectives are like, you know what, Jean, you have to let it go. We have already cleared Barry's name. Barry isn't involved. Barry isn't the one who ended up murdering Janice. And of course, Jean doesn't believe that. And we get to see Jean basically plotting revenge against Barry. And yeah, it's time for Barry to go and buy the flowers that Sally wanted. And as he's trying to decide which flowers to get her, even though she said yellow, he's kind of wondering about what different color flowers mean. He's talking to another woman, and yeah, while he's trying to buy the flowers, he's talking to another woman on the phone, whom he, I guess, linked through Craigslist, who wants to kill another person. And as these two are talking, Barry is like, can you do me a favor? She's like, what? Can you tell me that can you tell me why different color flowers mean different things? And of course the woman are like, how can you ask me such a thing during this time? I'm going through a lot of emotional stress. Are you a psychopath? And yeah, Barry is kind of, right? So we cut to Sally, and she's meeting with one of the heads, and she ends up showing her some footage to the head. And yeah, the head is basically, I'm not really sure if she's even present. She says stuff which doesn't mean anything. She's remembering another show while she's talking to Sally and trying to praise her. And she talks about this old guy who ended up giving a very good performance, even though Sally's show doesn't have an old guy. And then we get to see Sally's assistant talk, and Sally looks at her, and yeah, basically the meeting didn't go well, but the other person ends up reassuring Sally that it went well, because that's just how studio heads talk, because they want to remain aloof. They don't want to get too attached to a project before it's guaranteed a success, and all of that stuff. It's basically how the industry works. And yeah, she walks away, and before Sally's assistant walks away, I think her name is Natalie, right, if I remember correctly, Sally is like, you know what, Natalie, even though I don't feel successful unless I'm also bringing other women up with me, I do want to ask you a favor. I just don't want you to talk during meetings. And Natalie's like, what? Yeah, Sally's like, just don't talk during meetings. And you know what, when I'm in a meeting, that's the perfect time for you to make my lunch. And yeah, you can actually tell that as far as Sally is concerned, this is her world. She's focused on her profession, and the other people around her, including Barry, they're just props for her to use as she sees fit. So talking about the impressive shot that I like, not impressive necessarily, but I really like this shot. And as I said, Bill Hader is the one who ended up directing this episode. We get this long shot of Sally basically working through the set, going over clothing options, talking to other people, because this is her project. And yeah, she's giving all of this 100%. I really like this entire shot where Sally ended up walking through one staged room to the other staged room to the other, next, until she ends up finding herself in a dark place, and she gives herself a breather, and she dives back in. I really like this scene and how it was shot. So after they do film a scene, they have a 30-minute lunch break, and this is where Barry comes in and he brings her the flowers, and of course Sally basically puts up an act. She's like, can't you stay for lunch? When's your audition? And Barry's like, yeah, my audition is basically during lunchtime and I can't stay. He's basically saying everything that Sally wanted him to say, even though Sally's co-star wants Barry to stay for lunch. And yeah, as she's talking, this is where Barry, because he's experiencing issues, this is where he actually hallucinates Sally getting shot right in the head as she's talking. And yeah, Barry, as far as Barry is concerned, I guess he's like, you know what, maybe I might end up shooting Sally. Who knows? You know what, maybe that might happen, that Sally ends up learning the truth about Barry, and Barry doesn't necessarily seem that in love with Sally anymore, and he might end up shooting her. Who knows? Let's see what happens. So this is a scene that took me by surprise. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but was Hank supposed to be a queer character back in season 1 and season 2? Because, yeah, we actually see, after the interrogation is finished, we actually see Hank going to his house, and Cristobal is taking a bath in his house, and Hank tells him about the interrogation. He takes his clothes off and he joins Cristobal in the bath, in the shower, and yeah, these two are basically a thing now, and they're watching a movie. And this is where these two talk about how a lot of people ended up getting killed due to Barry. Cristobal lost all of his buddies, while Hank also lost buddies, but he still has a few of them. And Cristobal is like, you know what, I can't rebuild everything right now. I need to find supporters, I need to find people, and can we just not talk about Barry right now? It kills the mood. So yeah, Hank is a queer main lead, co-lead character of in Barry, which again, I totally forgot. Maybe they showed something back in season 1 and 2 saying that he's queer, but I don't know. I forgot. Again, the show came back after 3 years. I forgot. So as Hank is going out, is walking outside in his backyard, he's checking the hot tub and whatnot. This is where Barry appears, and of course Hank is like, "What the heck are you doing here, Barry? You need to go. You need to go." And this is where Barry realizes that Cristobal and Hank are a thing now. And yeah, Hank is like, "What? Are you jealous?" But yeah, Barry is actually here to ask Hank for help. He's like, you know what, Hank, I have lost my purpose. I've been trying to work with other people through Craigslist, but it just doesn't feel the same. I need you to give me work. I need you to give me a target, and you don't have to tell anyone about it. We can do this in secret. And yeah, this is where Hank is like, no, Barry, no. You ended up framing me for Genesis murder. You tried framing me for the monastery shooting. You left my pin there, the pin that I gave to you. You aren't in the position to ask me any favors, Barry. And Barry's like, Hank, I know I messed up, but you have to forgive me. Please forgive me. And yeah, this is where Hank is like, you know what, Barry? Forgiveness has to be earned. So go, he just walks away because yeah. The light went out. Yeah, power issues here. But anyway, coming back to the episode, this is where Hank is like, you know what, Barry, I don't want anything to do with you. You basically Hank wants Barry to work harder in order to earn his forgiveness, which makes sense because Barry, considering the way they ended up framing Hank, he was likely going to put Hank in a lot of trouble. So yeah, this is where Hank walks off with another comedic line. He walks away and he's like, you know what, Barry, leave my house. Just make sure that you don't frame me again as you leave. That made me laugh. So yeah, Barry trying to reach out to Hank, that didn't work, but I think he's going to try again because I really enjoyed the dynamic between these two. So as he's waiting, still at Hank's house, this is where he gets a message from Jean, and Jean is like, "Can we meet at the theater tomorrow morning? I need some help packing up. I'll pay." And yeah, this is basically step 1 of Jean's plan to get his revenge. So we cut to Jean basically taking out this gun that he was gifted by Rip Torn. And if you could use Google to see who Rip Torn is. He's an actual actor. And yeah, Gene is going to use this gun in order to kill Barry. And it's the morning. He ends up kissing his grandkid goodbye. He says goodbye to his son, and yeah, the son notices that something is up with his dad. And considering how this episode ended, if his dad doesn't return home, I think the son is going to go out looking for him because he can tell that something isn't right. So we cut to Barry meeting up with Jean, and yeah, Barry's like, I'm so sorry. I'm actually sad that you're closing the theater. Isn't there anything that I can do to help? What will you do after you close the theater? You won't be teaching any classes. Will you go back to acting? And Jean is like, Barry, stop the act. You know that my career is ended. And this is where again he's like, you know what, Barry? I know that you're the one who ended up killing Janice. Fuchs, the guy who ended up telling me. And yeah, Barry is like, what the heck are you trying to do now, Jean? And he notices Jean take out the gun. And I think Barry is like, he's really, really concerned about this. As far as I can tell, he's like, is Jean really going to shoot me? But before Jean can do anything, it turns out that the gun just broke away. And the parts roll towards Barry, and yeah, Barry ends up looking at Jean with a sad yet sinister look on his face, and he's like, I'm sorry about this, Mr. Kuzno, I'm sorry. And we fade to black, and then we come back, we actually see Barry pointing his gun at Mr. Kuzno, and yeah, he's ready to shoot Jean, and of course Jean pleads for his life. He's like, Barry, you don't have to do this. Please forgive me, it was a mistake. I'll forgive you. I won't tell a soul that you're the one who ended up killing Janice. I won't tell anyone that you ended up threatening my life. We can move through this. I'm Mr. Kuzno. You know me. Please forgive me. And yeah, this is where Barry is like, but Mr. Kuzno, forgiveness has to be earned. Again, it's the same. It's the line that Hank said to him, and this is where Kuzno is like, you know what, Barry? Then earn it. And as he's talking to Jean, this is also where Barry, again, similar to how he ended up seeing it while he was interacting with Sally, he sees Jean getting shot in the forehead as well. And yeah, Jean is like, you know what, Barry? You have to earn forgiveness. You can't just ask other people for forgiveness unless you actually earn it. And this is where Barry is like, I understand where you're coming from, Mr. Kuzno. And you know what? There's a way I can do that. There's a way I can fix this thing. And yeah, we got to Barry having this weird, crazy facial expression, and I'm like, Barry, what the heck are you going to do? And the episode actually opens with Barry still pointing his gun at Mr. Kuzno and telling him to get back in the trunk. I'm like, Barry, what? What are you planning? But yeah, as far as the premiere episode for season 3 is concerned, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this episode, and yeah, I'm a fan of season number 1 and season number 2. If you guys haven't watched those 2 previous seasons, I implore that you do, and then start watching season number 3. Barry is one of the most well-written shows currently out there. You need to watch this. You need to watch this show. And yeah, even though I'm recapping and reviewing it, like, don't take my word for it, basically, because the way that everything is acted, the way everything is directed and written, I can't put that in my own words. I just can't. The entire feeling that you get when you're actually watching this show, you have to watch it for yourself. So yeah, let me know what you thought of Barry season number 3, episode number 1. If you watched it, what do you think is going to happen next? Where do you think Barry is going to take Mr. Kuzno? Do you think Cristobal is going to remain alive and still be in a relationship with Hank? Or maybe Barry might end up having to kill Cristobal in front of Hank? Who knows? What do you think Fuchs is going to do? I think he's going to come back, right? He's going to come back to LA. Who knows? But yeah, let me know what you thought of the episode down in the comment section below. And until next time, stay happy, stay safe, stay blessed. See you guys later. Bye.